You're listening to Voice of Rockefeller, where power speaks without apology. Let his mind guide you where comfort never will.
They do not want you to be rich. They want you to be good. Two entirely different paths. A man cannot serve two masters, and they have made certain you have chosen theirs. You feel it, don't you? A quiet, gnawing suspicion that your virtues are little more than a well-adorned leash. That your humility, your desire to be seen as fair and kind and decent, is the very sand in the gears of your own ascent. You have been taught to build a respectable life, a life another man can approve of. But a life built for the approval of others is a cage, finely furnished, perhaps, but a cage nonetheless. And the most damning part is that you are proud of the bars. You polish them. You call them your principles. Listen to me. Not with your ears, which have been trained to filter truth through the mesh of politeness, but with that deep, cold part of you that awakens in the dead of night, the part that audits your life and finds the accounts wanting. Turn away from this voice if you wish. Go back to the warm slumber of being liked. Go back to the easy camaraderie of shared complaint, the gentle mediocrity of the herd. But you will remember this conversation. It will sit in the back of your mind like a sliver of glass. And every time you compromise, every time you swallow your ambition to appease a lesser man, every time you trade $1 of your future for a moment of another's approval, you will feel it twist. You will understand the price you are paying. The price is not merely wealth. The price is the man you were meant to be, the empire you were meant to build, the world you were meant to command. You are trading a throne for a pat on the head, and you call this exchange honorable. My philosophy, if you wish to call it that, is not a grand or complicated thing. It is simple arithmetic applied to the soul of man. It rests on a single, immovable pillar, the complete and total detachment of my will from the emotional weather of others. You believe your feelings are a compass. I know them to be a storm. You think your passions are a fire that fuels you. I see them as a conflagration that consumes you, leaving nothing but ash. You seek connection, consensus, a feeling of belonging. I sought only leverage. Let me be precise. Sentiment is a currency for the poor. It is the only coin they have to trade, and so they overvalue it to a ruinous degree. They trade loyalty for a pittance. They trade outrage for entertainment. They trade their love and their hate for the feeling of being part of a mob, a feeling that warms them for a night before leaving them colder than before. I observed this early. I saw men of immense talent, men with minds like fine steel traps, utterly undone by a personal slight, by a public insult, by the need to be seen as a good fellow. A good fellow is a useful fool. He can be relied upon to act against his own interests if you flatter his sense of honor. He will sign a bad deal to seem agreeable. He will sacrifice a long-term advantage for a short-term applause. My world was built in silence, not the absence of noise, but the deliberate cultivation of an inner stillness so profound that the chaotic symphony of human emotion became nothing more than ambient sound, data to be observed, not a song to be danced to. While other men were shouting, I was listening. While they were reacting, I was calculating. While they were consumed with the passion of the moment, the insult, the victory, the perceived injustice, I was looking 5 years, 10 years, 50 years down the road. I was building a machine while they were fighting over the scraps from its floor. The key to this detachment is not to suppress emotion. That is a fool's errand. What is suppressed grows monstrous in the dark. No, the key is to demote it, to remove it from the council of decision-making, to treat it as you would treat a whining child in a boardroom. Its presence is noted, its needs will be attended to later, but it does not get a vote. It does not dictate strategy. My anger, my pride, my joy, my envy, these were my private pets. They were not my public masters. You, on the other hand, you have been trained to enthrone your feelings. Follow your passion, they tell you. Speak your truth. And what is your truth? It is usually a momentary, unexamined emotional reaction, and your passion, a fleeting obsession with an outcome you cannot control. This advice is designed to keep you small. A man who is a slave to his passions is a predictable creature. A predictable creature is a manageable one. A man who weeps at a sad story can be sold a war. A man who cheers at a parade can be made to forget his empty pockets. A man who needs to feel righteous can be led by the nose into any crusade they design for him. I learned to see the world as a great, silent engine, a machine of interlocking interests. Money is not the engine. Money is the oil. It is the facilitator. It reduces friction. It allows the great gears of ambition and need to turn smoothly. It is a neutral force like gravity. To hate it, to call it evil, is like a physicist hating the law of thermodynamics. It is a child's tantrum against reality. They teach you to hate money, to be suspicious of it, to feel a slight shame in its accumulation, precisely so you will not learn the machine's mechanics. You are taught to be a cog, content in your small, predictable rotation. You are not meant to understand the design. You are certainly not meant to be the engineer. Patience, you see, real patience, is not passive. It is not waiting. It is an active, predatory stillness. It is the deliberate, calculated refusal to act until the optimal moment, a moment that you have engineered to arrive. The herd is impatient. It stampedes at the first sign of rain and tramples itself to death in the drought. It buys at the peak of hysteria and sells at the trough of despair. My fortune was built on this simple, repeatable pattern. I did not follow the weather. I built the ark, and I knew that sooner or later the rain would come. This requires a long view, a time horizon that extends beyond your own life. You are taught to think in terms of paychecks, of quarterly reports, of election cycles. Your mind is confined to these tiny boxes of time. It is a form of induced myopia. You are so focused on the next step that you cannot see the map. I was always staring at the map. I was willing to lose a skirmish to position myself for the war. I was willing to appear foolish, to be misunderstood, to be patient for a decade if necessary, while the pieces moved into place. This is a quiet power. It has no glamour. It wins no accolades, but it is inexorable. It is the power of the glacier, not the avalanche. One is a spectacle of a moment. The other reshapes the continent. You have been taught to chase the spectacle. You have been taught that if it is not loud, it is not power. This is the gravest lie of all. The loudest man in the room is the weakest. He is bleeding information. He is begging for a response. The silent man, the patient man, the one who watches and waits, that is the man who holds the cards. He makes you nervous. You do not know what he knows. You babble to fill the void. And in your babbling, you reveal everything. Think of it this way. They have taught you to play checkers, a fine game for children. Every piece is the same. They move in predictable, linear ways. The goal is simple, direct confrontation. But the world is not a checkerboard. The world is a game of Go. The board is vast and seemingly empty. The power is not in the pieces you have taken, but in the territory you control. The influence you exert. The empty spaces on the board are often more powerful than the stones themselves. A move made on one side of the board can, 20 moves later, render an entire army on the other side dead, without ever touching it. It is a game of strategic encirclement, of slowly, patiently, quietly cutting off your opponent's optionality, until he realizes, far too late, that the board he thought was open is, in fact, entirely yours. He is not defeated. He is merely contained. And a contained man eventually capitulates to his container. I did not seek to defeat my competitors in dramatic battles. I sought to contain them. I bought the land around their well. I bought the path to the market. I bought the silence of the banker who held their loans. And then I waited. This is the truth you must swallow if you can bear it. The world is not divided into the good and the evil. That is a fairy tale they tell you to keep you from seeing the real division. The world is divided into the effective and the ineffective. The moral man who starves his family is not good. He is a failure. The man who builds an empire that feeds thousands, that fuels a nation, that funds universities and eradicates diseases. You can call him a devil, but you cannot call him a failure. You have been so obsessed with the purity of your intentions that you have neglected the reality of your results. Intentions live in the ephemeral world of thought. Results live in the hard, cold, unforgiving world of reality. I judged men by their results. I judge myself by my results. And by that metric, I have no peer. The first railroad men were pirates. Loud, boisterous, vain men. They saw a line from one point to another. They saw a train, a cargo, a fee. They raced to build, over-leveraged, cutting corners, bribing politicians with a gaudy flourish. They were sprinters, and they were celebrated for their speed. But I was not building a railroad. I was building a system. I was not interested in the dash. I was interested in the inescapable network. I remember a meeting. Not one of the famous ones that the papers wrote about, but a small one in a stuffy room in Cleveland. The air was thick with cigar smoke and the smell of anxious sweat. Across the table from me sat 3 men. Good men by your definition, pillars of their communities, churchgoers, family men. They ran a small but respectable refinery. They were proud of their product. They were proud of their name. And they were losing money, not quickly, but steadily. A drip. A slow, silent bleed that would, in 18 months, leave them bankrupt. They did not know this with a certainty, of course. They felt it. They felt the pressure, the tightening. They saw my wagons delivering oil for a price they could not match. They heard rumors of rebates, of special deals with the railroads. They were angry. They felt it was unfair. Their anger was a hot, righteous thing. It made them feel strong. I sat and listened. I let the silence hang in the room after they had finished their speeches. Their indignation was a performance, and a performance requires an audience. I refused to be that audience. I simply waited. I watched the sweat on the brow of the eldest. I noted the way the youngest clenched and unclenching his fist beneath the table. The third man, the leader, he just stared at me, his eyes pleading for a fight, for an argument, for some recognition of his moral high ground. I gave him nothing. Silence is a vacuum. Human nature abhors it. They will rush to fill it. Finally, the oldest one spoke, his voice strained. Mr. Rockefeller, this is not a Christian way of business. I leaned forward just an inch, and I said quietly, Gentlemen, God gave me my money. It is by his providence that I have been entrusted with this great stewardship. It is my duty to him to be a good steward, to be efficient, to eliminate waste, to bring order out of chaos. The Lord abhors waste. What you call competition, I call waste. 2 railways running to the same small town where one would suffice. 3 refineries fighting over a market that can only support one. This is not business. This is a sin of inefficiency. I am not destroying you. I am simply offering you a chance to be part of a more perfect, more efficient, more orderly creation. I slid a piece of paper across the table. It was a valuation of their company, not based on their pride, or their family name, or the hard work they had put in. It was a valuation based on the cold, hard numbers of their books, books I knew almost as well as they did. It was a fair price. It was, in fact, more than the company would be worth in 6 months. It was a door, a way out of the room that was slowly, inexorably running out of air. Their anger collapsed. You see, righteousness is a luxury. It cannot be sustained without a full stomach and a healthy balance sheet. In its place came a different sort of emotion, a cold, hard despair. They saw the map. They saw that they were not just fighting Standard Oil. They were fighting the future. They were fighting arithmetic. One of them, the young one, started to speak of his father, of the legacy he had inherited. He was appealing to sentiment. He was trying to find a common ground of human feeling. I looked at him not unkindly, but with the kind of finality one might use with a child who does not understand why he cannot have cake for dinner. "Your father was a pioneer," I said, "and for that he should be honored. But the age of the pioneer is over. The age of the builder has begun. You have a choice. You can be crushed by the new world, or you can have a place in it. I am offering you a place. Not the place your vanity wants, perhaps, but a secure place. A profitable one," they sold. Of course they sold. And for the rest of their lives, they would tell the story of the day the devil came to Cleveland and stole their birthright. They would feel righteous in their defeat. They would be popular at dinner parties, telling the tale of the great Rockefeller monopoly. But every dividend check I sent them, every quarter, for the rest of their lives, the check was a quiet reminder of who had understood the nature of the world and who had not. They traded their ambition for a good story, a very common transaction. Do you understand what happened in that room? It was not a negotiation about money. It was a sermon on the nature of reality. They believed the world was a collection of individual stories. I knew it was a system. They believed in their own free will. I believed in the predictable consequences of their limitations. They saw me as a competitor. I saw them as a component, a part of the machine that was not yet properly integrated. I was not being cruel. I was being orderly. Cruelty is chaotic. Order is divine. They teach you to hate men like me. They make me a caricature in your history books. The robber baron. It is a comforting narrative. It allows you to feel morally superior to the man who holds all the power. It is the consolation prize of the masses. The powerful man is evil, therefore my powerlessness is a sign of my virtue. You see how neatly the trap is constructed. Your envy is laundered into a moral position. It is a masterpiece of social control. You are told to pursue your dreams. A lovely sentiment. But what if your dreams are small? What if your dreams have been planted in your head by the very system that profits from your compliance? You dream of a house, a family, a vacation, a secure retirement. These are not your dreams. These are the standardized, socially acceptable aspirations handed down to you. They are just enough to keep you working, to keep you borrowing, to keep you paying taxes, to keep you afraid of losing what little you have. These are the dreams of a well-fed house pet. I had no such dreams. I had a vision of a world lit by clean, affordable, reliable light. A world where the wheels of industry turned without ceasing, fueled by a substance that was brought forth from the earth with maximum efficiency and minimum waste. My vision was not about a mansion. It was about the entire world, reordered, rationalized, perfected. The money was a byproduct. It was the measure of the efficiency. It was the tangible proof of the vision's correctness. A man with a dream is at the mercy of the world. A man with a vision is the one who remakes it. So, how does a man begin to untangle himself from this web of induced obedience? It is not done with a grand gesture. Grand gestures are for the theater. It is done in the dark. It is done in silence. It is a slow, methodical rewiring of your own mind. First, you must learn to sever the link between your self-worth and the opinions of others. This is the hardest part. Your entire life, you have been a trained animal, responding to the stimuli of praise and criticism. You must untrain yourself. You must find a point of stillness inside you, a center of gravity that is yours and yours alone. When a man insults you, you must learn to see it not as an attack, but as a broadcast of his own insecurity. When a man praises you, you must learn to see it not as a validation, but as a statement of his own needs. You are not the subject of their sentences. You are merely the object, They are always talking about themselves. Once you understand this, their words lose all their power. They become noise, data. Second, you must cultivate an almost religious devotion to the ledger. Not just your financial ledger, but a ledger of your time, your energy, your focus. You must become a ruthless auditor of your own life. Where does my time go? Who am I giving it to? For what return? Most men leak their lives away in 1,000 small, unexamined expenditures. A pointless argument, a social obligation they resent, a worry about a future they cannot control, a nostalgia for a past that cannot be changed. These are the leaks that sink the ship. You must plug them. Your attention is your single most valuable asset. It is the currency with which you buy your future, and you give it away for free every day to whoever asks for it. You must learn to say no, not angrily, not defensively, but with the calm, quiet finality of a closing vault door. No is a complete sentence. It requires no justification. Third, you must understand the difference between being respected and being liked. To be liked is to be pliable, to be neutered. To be liked is to be a welcome guest in another man's house. To be respected is to have them recognize that you are a force to be acknowledged, a power to be reckoned with. They do not have to enjoy your company. They do not have to approve of your methods. They simply have to understand that you cannot be ignored and that their plans must account for your existence. Respect is a consequence of power. Likability is a tool of the powerless to gain favor. Do not seek favor, seek control. I was not liked. The newspapers of Mr. Hearst and Mr. Pulitzer made a sport of vilifying me. They painted me as a monster, an octopus strangling the life out of the common man. I read their articles. I observed their cartoons. And I did nothing. I did not write letters to the editor. I did not sue for libel. I did not give interviews to defend my honor. I did nothing, because it was irrelevant. It was noise. While they were busy selling papers with my caricature, I was busy building universities, funding medical research that would save millions of lives, and creating a global enterprise of such scale and efficiency that it became the very backbone of the industrial age. What lasts? The angry cartoon yellowing in an archive, or the institution of brick and stone, the scientific discovery, the reordered world. The dogs bark, but the caravan moves on. You must learn to be the caravan. Consider the nature of charity as you have been taught it. It is an emotional act. You see a beggar, you feel a pang of pity, you give him a coin. You feel good about yourself. The beggar has a coin for his next meal. Nothing has changed. The system that produces beggars remains untouched. You have participated in a small, sentimental drama that alleviates your guilt but solves no problem. My charity was of a different nature. I did not give coins to beggars. I sought to eradicate the diseases that made men beggars. I sought to fund the education that would allow a man to never have to beg. I saw charity as I saw business, a problem of efficiency. The goal was not to feel good. The goal was to solve the problem, to eliminate the root cause. This requires a cold eye. It requires a mind that can see past the individual sob story to the underlying systemic failure. Pity is a cheap and useless emotion. It is the solvent of resolve. I sought to replace pity with a scalpel. You live in a world that is drowning in pity. It is the highest virtue of your age. You are encouraged to feel pity for everyone and everything, especially for yourself. This constant state of empathetic arousal keeps you weak, distracted, and incapable of sustained, focused action. You are so busy feeling bad for the world that you have no energy left to change it. This is not an accident. This is a design. A population consumed by a diffuse, impotent sorrow is a docile population. Let us speak of God. They will tell you that a man like me has no God, or that my God is mammon. They are wrong. God is the architect of the universe. He is the ultimate systematizer. His laws are immutable. Gravity, thermodynamics, cause and effect. The universe is a clockwork of perfect, inescapable logic. To understand these laws and to build one's life and one's enterprise in harmony with them is the highest form of worship. The law of supply and demand is a divine law. The law of efficiency, of eliminating waste, is a divine law. The law that actions have consequences is a divine law. I did not break God's laws. I studied them. I mastered them. I built my house upon their unshakable foundation. Your religion, the one taught to you in homes and schools, is a religion of comfort for the powerless. It speaks of the last being first, of the meek inheriting the earth. These are beautiful sentiments. They are a balm for the wounds of failure. They are a promise of a future reward for a present inadequacy. A man who truly believes he will be first in the next world is less likely to fight for his position in this one. It is a brilliant mechanism of social pacification. I never concerned myself with the next world. I was concerned with building a kingdom in this one, a kingdom of order, of light, of industry. If that work was pleasing to God, so be it. But my motive was the work itself, the perfection of the system. You fear monopolies. You have been taught that they are the ultimate evil of commerce. It is a child's understanding. You see a lack of choice. I see the peak of efficiency. What is a monopoly? It is the removal of wasteful competition. It is the centralization of purpose. It is the end of chaos. When Standard Oil brought order to the wilderness of the kerosene industry, we lowered the price of a gallon of oil from 58 cents to 7 cents. We made light cheap and accessible for every home. We created tens of thousands of jobs with stability and pensions, a thing unheard of. We took a dangerous, volatile, boom and bust industry, a gambler's paradise, and we turned it into a utility as reliable as the sunrise. I did not steal from the public. I standardized their world. I gave them consistency and predictability, the twin pillars of progress. But you are not taught to see this. You are shown the picture of the fat man sitting on the treasury, and you are filled with a righteous, impotent rage. You are not taught to see the light in the farmhouse that allows a child to read, the fuel that powers the factory that employs the father, the order that allows a nation to rise. You are taught a simple story of good versus evil. Life is not a story. It is a balance sheet. You must unlearn your heroes. You are given men of grand, failed gestures, men who fought bravely and lost, men who spoke beautiful words and accomplished nothing. You are taught to admire the noble failure. I admire only the ugly victory. I admire the man who does what is necessary, no matter how unseemly, to achieve his vision. The world is built by such men. It is enjoyed by the romantics who condemn them. You can be the builder or you can be the critic. You cannot be both. The critic's work is easy. He risks nothing. He stands on the sidelines and points out the flaws in the arena. The builder, he is in the arena, covered in dust and sweat and blood. He makes mistakes. He is imperfect, but he is the one who is actually building the world. Let me give you a piece of advice that you will not hear from the motivational speakers. It is a piece of forbidden knowledge. Do not seek to be understood. To be understood is to be captured. The moment people feel they have you figured out, you are predictable. You are in their box. Your power lies in your opacity. Let them gossip. Let them speculate. Let them create their own narratives about you. Their narratives are their prison, not yours. Your silence, your calm, your inscrutable purpose, that is your freedom. Never explain, never complain. An explanation is a plea for understanding. A complaint is a plea for pity. Both are positions of weakness. Let your results be your only statement. Think about the men you admire, the ones in your own life. Are they men of power, or are they simply men who are good at seeming powerless in an appealing way? the self-deprecating man, the man who is one of the guys, the man who never makes anyone uncomfortable. These are the men you have been taught to like. These are safe men. They will never challenge you. They will never threaten the comfortable order of things, and they will never build a thing that lasts. They are placeholders. They are the background against which the real work is done by men you have been taught to fear. The fear of being disliked. It is the most powerful weapon of social control ever devised. It is the invisible fence that keeps the herd in the pasture. The moment you decide you are willing to be disliked, you are free. You are free to make the hard decisions. You are free to tell the unpleasant truths. You are free to pursue a vision that others cannot see. You are free to demand excellence from those around you. You are free to fail on your own terms and to succeed on your own terms. To be willing to be the villain in someone else's story is the price of authorship in your own. I had rivals, many of them, clever men, ambitious men, but they all had a fatal flaw. They wanted to win, but they also wanted to be loved. They wanted to build an enterprise, but they also wanted to be a man of the people. This duality was their undoing. They would hesitate at the critical moment, afraid of public opinion. They would make a sentimental decision, keeping a loyal but incompetent manager, holding onto a failing but nostalgic asset. I had no such conflicts. My loyalty was to the system, to the vision, to the cold, clean logic of the enterprise. An incompetent man was a broken part. He was to be replaced. A failing asset was a diseased limb. It was to be amputated. This was not cruelty. It was hygiene. The health of the whole depended on it. You are taught to network, to make connections, to be a people person. This is another trap. You become a node in a web of obligations, a favor given, a favor owed. You spend your life managing these small emotional debts. I did not network. I built the network. I did not seek connections. I became the connection. I made myself the central hub, the point through which all the critical lines of information and...
This was the voice of Rockefeller. Forget it and return to being a pawn.